I hope everybody's very excited to be a part of this 2 days conference. It's been a very exciting journey for me, and I will be talking about the blockchain, a trust protocol for a new economy. All right. So I think for us to be able to really understand the trust aspect of the blockchain, it's important for us to sort of go back in time and review the evolution of trust in the financial sector. And as we can see in the slides over here, back in the days, in the ancient time really, the folks were used to trade, livestock and using stones. And at different times, we had different people who were actually the central authorities providing trust or endorsing the ability of being able to trace those specific instruments in the past. And eventually we see that we moved over from the livestock and the stones to precious metals. Precious metals like gold and your diamonds. It used to be a form of transaction, being able to exchange value and purchase goods and so forth. And after that, we see that the introduction of the fiat paper-based system was introduced in the 11th century. And with that as well, we see that the banks were introduced actually as the central authority for them to be able to enforce the trust element. Now, over time, actually, we also see that in the 21st century, along the fiat money, digital money was actually introduced. And everybody here has been using digital money for a very long time. So the central banks and the commercial banks became the trust bearers of these specific ways of exchanging money. But we have a fundamental issue that happened in 2008 that eventually led to the creation of Bitcoin. And that trust was actually broken back in the days, and we all know exactly why. I'm not going to get into the detail of that. But it gave rise to Bitcoin as a peer-to-peer cash electronic system. And today, the future is so bright. We have so many variations of blockchain technologies allowing us to be able to enforce trust and exchange value. Now, we all know that Bitcoin was actually born, and this is the first decentralized peer-to-peer system. And in order for Bitcoin to really sustain, there had to be a technology that sort of was going to allow to bring back the trust element and being able to enforce it. And that technology today is called the blockchain. Now, we see that the blockchain, we all know that it is a decentralized ledger system, but most importantly today, the blockchain acts as a gatekeeper in this emerging decentralized trust economy, right? So, going forward really, and beyond just Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, a lot of people really think that back in the days that, Bitcoin was, the blockchain was just associated to Bitcoin, but blockchain is way far more than just a vehicle for supporting Bitcoin. It is really, really far more than that. And most importantly, just like the internet back in the early days really sort of solved the distance gap, today we see that the blockchain is solving the trust gap. And I am going to talk about that in just a moment. But before I do, I just want to pull up a little bit about the 3 levels of blockchain, really. And we see that, 3 levels of blockchain. One is to be able to store digital records, and the other one is to exchange digital asset. And fundamentally, the other one as well is to be able to enforce or implement smart contract. Now, let's sort of really debunk the word trust. And I really thought about it. And I'm going to talk about each one of these single letters for you to understand exactly how we can view the trust element in the blockchain context. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the first letter, T. So T for transparency. If you think about it, we used to trust all these third parties until we just stopped trusting them. And for us to be able to do business together, really, we need to have some sort of transparency in everything that we are doing. So the T here for me is the transparency element. And the blockchain as a decentralized ledger has been actually really developed to emphasize on that specific element. But right after that, the second element I want to talk about is the letter R, for reputation. Now, if we look into the sharing economy today, we look into things, applications like Uber and Airbnb and so forth. Today we see that reputation is becoming increasingly a most important attribute for us to be able to do business together. So if, for example, let's say riding an Uber and I call the driver and I see that the driver has a bad reputation for, let's say, harassing ladies, for example, and he has a very bad rating, chances are I am not going to be able to ride with him. So the blockchain allows us today to be able to enforce this reputation so we can actually continue doing business. But one fundamental element in the trust element of blockchain is the letter U, which is unalterable. And I think that actually it is the most important aspect that allowed the blockchain to be to have that certain value and be considered as a piece of technology that undeniably will be trusted around the world. So the fact that we cannot alter any data makes the blockchain one of the most important revolutions in the internet today. Now, I suppose you guys can probably think about what the S will be, but if you don't, that will be for a smart contract. So looking into smart contract today, I think the blockchain allows us to be able to eliminate third parties and start including pieces of code that sort of execute a certain piece of agreement. Now we see that the Ethereum platform or blockchain came and introduced the whole concept of the smart contract, and today more and more applications are. I mean, earlier on we've seen applications such as the Dash Embassy, and making use of the smart contract for them to be able to enforce on things. So we see that this is becoming more and more important, and the blockchain allows us to enforce that confidentiality, among other things. And lastly, we have the T for the token economy. So that is very, very important for you to realize that, we live in an exciting new, brave world. And we've heard the words token or tokenomics and so forth. But what's important about a blockchain is this. If you do not develop a sort of economy that involves a community of people that understand or love your product, so they can actually increase utility on the network, your blockchain project is not going to make sense. So it is important to realize that every single time that you have or you want to embark on a blockchain project, make sure that you design your token economic to ensure that you are going to provide value to the network. And I love what my previous speaker mentioned earlier. He emphasized on the ability to ask the right questions before you embark on a blockchain project. So these are the things that you really need to understand. So trust, think about it. So we mentioned about the transparency, the reputation, unalterable, the ability to implement smart contract, and most importantly, develop a token economy that will really make sense. So we live in exciting times, and it is important for you to look into that. So how can we really get started? I mean, being part of this 2 days conference, I've seen some amazing opportunities here, and I've seen some amazing people who are already working on phenomenal opportunities. And therefore, as entrepreneurs, and I'm an entrepreneur myself all the way from South Africa, it is important to always develop new things, right? So ambitiously build new cases beyond just financial services. Yes, we believe in the financial services. I mean, Bitcoin, as a matter of fact, was created as a payment system, a peer-to-peer cash electronic system. It all started from there, but it doesn't have to stop there. So we've seen that the blockchain has many uses for various applications. People don't need to understand how this technology works underneath, but what is important for us is to focus more on the applications that are going to serve the purpose of the public, the guys that we are actually solving problems for. So those are the things that we need to be able to focus on. Take a leap of faith. Make sure that you review your blockchain with the peers and your application to see if they are blockchain ready. Just like my other predecessor mentioned earlier on. So it is really exciting times, and I am very excited to be here. And voila, all I can say is terima kasih.